What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to What's New in the Blue, your source for all things Michigan DECA related. My name is Milan Patel. I'm the vice president, or I guess exiting vice president of public relations for Michigan DECA, and I'm super thrilled to be here with you today. We have two very important interviewees on today, and just going a little bit over some of the SCDC wins, some of the highlights from that conference, and preparing a little bit for the next stage, ICDC. So with that, we're going to kind of start with what happened at SCDC. So firstly, I just wanted to thank from the state officer team, just thank everyone for such an amazing conference, truly unforgettable from all of the state officers. And it's really because of you guys, because of all the members, the Michigan DECA helpers, volunteers, the advisors. So thank you all for just making the conference truly special. Also, shout out to some of the top fundraising chapters: Dakota, Frankenbooth, Lakeland, Greenville, Birmingham Seahome, Lakeview, Saline, Garden City, Northville, and Detroit Catholic Central. Of course, there's a lot more chapters, but thank you for those large donations to MDA. And thank you for, like I said, thank you to all the chapters for all the fundraising you did, whether it was just raising $10 or $1,000. Every contribution matters. And we hope that next year you also do your part and contribute again. I also want to shout out Airport High School and really any other chapter that had teams of students who were in matching coordinating clothes. I remember seeing a lot of teams dressed up in similar suits and also just similar clothing throughout the conference. So that was really great to see the theme very consistent. So firstly, we're going to start out with an interview with one of our SCDC state champions. So Finn Wilson is from Ann Arbor Pioneer. He placed first at the state conference and qualified for ICDC. So Finn, welcome, and just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I just want to say that first. I'm Finn Wilson, like you said. I'm a senior at Ann Arbor Pioneer, and my experience with DECA this year has been amazing. It is something that I wish I've discovered earlier. I just joined this year, actually. This is my first year ever competing at DECA, so everything was new to me at regionals, and at states I tried to build off of my performance, and I think it went very well. And I just wish I would have done it junior year, sophomore year, so I could have another experience like this, because it was excellent, and I'm very excited to compete in Orlando at ICDC.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, just congratulations for not only it being your first year in DECA, but you're a senior, so you can't do any of the principals events. You're thrown right into the deep end. But you made the most out of your 1 year in DECA, and that's for sure. And I hope, you do
So,
find success at ICDC, but also you should be really proud. I don't know how many seniors I know for their first year that, had the motivation even just to try their hardest and, get to that next stage.
thank
Um,
you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, no, of course. I mean, very well deserved. But tell us a little bit about your event and, kind of how you prepared a little bit. How much time were you spending? I know it was kind of your first year, so you definitely probably had to do a little bit more than maybe some other people because, you're new to all this still. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so my event was personal financial literacy, and I think I had a solid base understanding of most of the concepts from talking to my dad. He's big into personal finance and also school classes, some business classes, some personal finance classes that kind of gave me the groundwork. And then to prepare for the state conference, I printed out old exams and old role plays. And for the role plays, I would time myself and listen back and see how I sounded and go over the time and make sure I was getting all my components in. And for the tests, I would just took 8 previous tests, and everything I didn't know, any vocab word or any term I didn't know, I would highlight it, put it into a separate document, and memorize all those terms. So it was very just rote memorization, and I think that really paid off during the exam.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I'll say, I mean, from my own experience, I can't tell you in the 4 years of my deck experience, like how many different resources I've used to study for the test. I mean, not many people know about it, but Competition University, that resource I used a lot, like kind of my freshman, sophomore year. But actually, kind of when I went to my junior and senior year, I kind of veered away a little bit from it, just because I feel like I use that resource in ample amount and I focus a lot more right
Yeah.
on those practice tests. And if I didn't know anything, making sure that I'm making a Quizlet or whatever it is, just to make sure that I learn those kind of vocab terms.
Right. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. And, we talked already a little bit about the test, but was there anything else you did for that or even your role plays? I know you said you recorded yourself, which I will also say, um, that's a great aspect as well, recording yourself, because you can see not only how well you spoke, but, just to see how you communicated your ideas and you kind of put yourself in the shoes of a judge to see, all right, how are they kind of grading me? And you can almost kind of grade yourself. But was there anything else you kind of did role play wise or even test wise?
One thing I did, which was a little bit unorthodox, which I'm not sure if many other people utilize this, but I took advantage of some AI software and had AI write me study guides, and I gave them my test scores and what concepts I was struggling with, and I asked to get a different perspective from different AI softwares, and they were actually pretty helpful in giving me study tips and areas to focus on and strategies to improve my weaknesses. So I think AI was actually a big help in the study process.
For sure. No, I've definitely been hearing a lot more about AI uses kind of, I mean, just around Michigan, I've been hearing people, just using AI not only to help with the test, but also give them extra tips, like you said, on the role plays and stuff. And I think, maybe we talked about that in one of the previous competition prep podcasts, actually, but super great resource and it's always improving. So it's one of those things that next year is going to be definitely going to be a game changer for sure. And then our
Absolutely.
final question for you was that how are you kind of stepping up for ICDC? What are you doing differently if there's anything, or um how are you going to keep studying or anything else differently or similarly you're going to do at ICDC?
Yeah, so the ICDC prep has begun. I like my strategy for states, and I think it paid off. So I'm not going to completely divert from the strategy I've been using, but I am changing a few things. Specifically, on the DECA website, you can find, as I'm sure you know, you might have even put it there. You can find what percent different topics are at the state meet versus the international conference. Sorry, not meet. And there is a difference. So at the international conference, there are topics that are emphasized and focused on more than they were at the state meet. So I'm turning more attention towards those topics and those concepts and dialing in my studying like that. And I'm just excited to compete.
Yeah. No, that's definitely good advice from just so, for everyone listening, from the district to the state to the international conference, there's the testing categories kind of switch a little bit, especially from the district to state.
Yep.
For each year, there's kind of like a little table or rubric, I guess you could say, with the amount of questions that you'll see per category. So definitely check that out if you want to study sort of the bigger topics. Also, Finn, what are you kind of doing with that information? Once you know that, okay, this test is going to be focused more on specific topics, what are you then doing to kind of study those specific topics?
So for example, for me, it's more investing heavy. It's going to be heavier on personal investing. So I'll look for outside resources on that specific topic, like books about investing, personal finance books targeted towards investing, or chapters in books on investing, and just read up as much as I can. Also on AI softwares, getting study guides specifically about investing and these topics that are going to be emphasized heavier. So I think once I get the information of what is going to be more important on the next test, I study that in any way I can outside of the DECA resources as well.
Thank you so much, Finn, for taking the time to join us on What's New in the Blue. And yeah, do you have
Of
anything
course.
else
Thank
to
you for
say?
having
Any
me.
last remarks?
I'll see you guys in Orlando. I'm excited. I'm
I'll see
excited.
you there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Finn. So I'll see you in a month.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Finn. We'll let you head out. And, going back to some of the ICDC tips that Finn mentioned a little bit, just making sure that, you're staying up to date on your studying, making sure that you have a schedule, you stick to it. Finn is 100% locked in on his studying. So, just even if you're not doing as much as Finn, doing something is always better than nothing because the state conference is over a month away from the international, and you're definitely going to forget things in that time. Also, for your SCDC experience, kind of translating that into your ICDC prep is that, you've already had success on the state stage. So you don't have to do anything that much crazier. You clearly know what you're doing and you have somewhat of a handle of your knowledge, but there's always ways you can improve. So just kind of be aware of that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel studying, but always, there's always a little bit something you can do. For everyone who is competing at ICDC, congratulations to all the qualifiers. We also recommend that, as a chapter, you kind of congratulate these members. I mean, they've put in all this work, they put in all this time into DECA, they competed. It's a lot of stress. And, it's important that, maybe they get shout outs at their school or just some other announcement, maybe, of what they've done and their success. And not only this is recognition good for the members, but it also kind of promotes next year for your DECA chapter and gives a confidence boost a little bit. And it kind of creates this awareness for DECA that could be used to gain more membership and more motivation for members to do well. So when you're in ICDC, for those of you who are going, you can also kind of relay this information to your chapter because, it's important. Firstly, there's going to be a lot of people there. I mean, 20,000 plus. There's going to be a ton of networking opportunity. There's going to be competitions. And also, you should download the app. There's going to be a DECA app where it's going to have a guide of all of your schedules and things you need to do. Also, pin trading is a big thing. So if you don't know pin trading, each kind of association or state has their own pin that they can trade with other states. And therefore, you can kind of get a bunch of pins, unique pins from really all around the world. And it's really a great time. A lot of people go really hard into this. Also, you do not want to miss DECA's night at Universal. This can be a lot of fun, a lot of DECA members. They shut down the park for DECA specifically. So it's just going to be all of the kids and, advisors and whoever else, but it's not going to be any outside groups, which is amazing. Also, opening session, there's only going to be one. I know last year, if you went to Anaheim, there's two, but this convention center is a little bit larger. Just, the temperature during the day in Orlando is going to be very hot, 80 degrees, and it's going to cool off a little bit to like the 60s at night. So make sure you are packing accordingly. And then at ICDC, there's this thing called Goose Chase. Now, if you don't know what it is, you can download the app, search for DECA ICDC 2025, and you can play individually or in a team up to 3. Pretty much what it is you complete challenges at ICDC to win prizes. And the kind of you rack up these points, and the more points you get, the higher chance you get of winning prizes. Finally, for Michigan DECA, we are staying at the Rosen Shingle Creek Resort. So this is a really large resort. There's 1,500 rooms. There's an 18-course golf course. There's a spa. There's tennis courts, volleyball. There's 4 swimming pools, stores, arcade, pickleball. The list goes on. So if I can tell you one thing is that you're not going to be bored at ICDC. There's always going to be something to do. So make sure that you're ready to have not only all this fun, but you're prepared. Maybe be ready to rent a tennis court or bring your swimming trunks, things like that. And then finally, even though we are staying at this amazing resort, it is a little bit of a distance away from the convention center. There's a little bit of a trade-off. A really nice resort, but a little bit of a distance. So you're not going to be able to walk actually to the convention center, but there will be shuttles that are going from the convention center to your resort at all hours of the day. So this is really important to making sure that you kind of plan ahead, making sure that you have time to take the shuttle. With that being said, we're going to be introducing our last interview of the day. This is an advisor from Lakeview High School, Miss Bost.
How you guys doing? Sorry. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on, our podcast, and, we really appreciate it. I know you're Bree's advisor. She, was trying to be here, but I'm glad I get get an interview with you at least. But yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself and sort of your experience as an advisor, how you started out.
Yeah, so I am the marketing teacher at Lakeview High School. It's on the west side of the state. I have been the advisor for a very long time, and I love it truly. Since like year three, it took me the first couple of years to really, um, understand it, and ever since then, I have seen it change lives and impact students, and that is why I continually come back and give it my best.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really great. I mean, advisor really is truly an amazing position. And also all the members can like atone to this that we're super grateful for all the work that, all the advisors do, yourself included, because it's just, I mean, it's a lot of work for you guys and your reward really is seeing us thrive.
Absolutely. Yep. That's what keeps you going is watching you guys grow
Mhm.
and learn, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of going to ICDC a little bit, what are some things that students forget and should always pack?
Yeah. I was struggling a little bit with that one, because I feel like it kind of depends on the student. So I would make sure you have a list, to be honest, of what you need. You hit on some things like there are beautiful pools at this resort. And so don't forget your bathing suit. Don't forget your Deca blazer. Yeah, I had a student one time do that.
Yep.
They forgot all their professional clothes. Don't do that. You also are probably going to want some comfortable shoes. But overall, I would just have a list, and your advisor probably has one. So I would just follow that, because otherwise you probably will forget something.
hmm No, that's definitely a good tip. I mean, right? I mean, last year going, I made a list 100% because I did not want to forget, anything, my blazer, a charger,
Right.
whatever it was. I mean, there's a lot of different things you need. So making a list is super important and kind of, adding things along the way. And also, I would also say like you could search up stuff too, like what to bring to
Mhm.
DECA, ICDC.
Right.
There'll definitely be some,
Packing
little
lists. There's
things
lots of
just,
packing lists out there.
yeah,
Um,
for sure. And just to make sure you don't forget anything as
right.
well. Okay, so at ICDC, what's kind of the biggest difference that you see for students between the state conference and SCDC?
So it's just way bigger. Everything I feel like is very similar, but what sometimes students don't they get concerned about is, I guess, there's just so many. They'll come to me and they'll be like, Miss Boss, there's so many competitors. Yes, but you are here for a reason. You are the winner of Michigan. And that means something, because we're a very competitive state. So when you walk into anything that you do there, you should walk in with the confidence that I won in a very competitive state, and I am going to come in and do this.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, you need that confidence, especially at ICDC. A lot of the winners that I've seen at ICDC have that confidence that, I can win, having
Right.
that
Mhm.
mentality.
Well, and I
Um,
think it even means something coming
mhm,
from Michigan.
yeah,
Just having done this for a long time, I've seen lots of states, and all the states are great, but we are very competitive in
yeah,
Michigan.
sure.
So the fact that you won in Michigan is impressive and awesome. So know that and walk in with that.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I mean, just having that confidence is really great. So for kind of your role plays and presentations, how do you stand out, or how do you think is the kind of best way to stand out?
Yeah. So first of all, practice, right? I mean, you guys already talked about that, but I think it's important to video yourself, like you talked about, but then also while you're practicing, um, practice with noise around you, because it is so
Mm,
busy at nationals. You're not going to be presenting whatever you're presenting in a quiet space. It's just not going to be quiet. So you need to practice projecting your voice a lot, and you need to practice like trying to drown out noise around you so that it does not distract you. Um, so that's, and then I also say, okay, so everybody comes to nationals knowing performance indicators, knowing your presentation, knowing the rubric that you're being evaluated on. Great, you're meeting those things, and now I call it like the wowing items. Okay, you've done all the things you're supposed to do and you have to do, but now, like, how are you going to wow that judge? Because they're going to see 20 people or 20 teams potentially.
mhm.
What are you going to do different? How are you going to stand out? You have to do something a little bit different. So it could be something as simple as an acronym, you
Yeah,
know, help the judge remember you.
for
Uh,
sure.
it could be a personal story. Um, but don't just think these things are naturally going to come. You have to practice them and you
Yeah.
have to plan for them. So if it's a role play, even though you don't know exactly what the role play is going to be about, you can go get actual stats about customer service or about promotion or product service
Hmm.
management or so whatever it is. You can come with some background knowledge that's going to help you stand out with those.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
No,
And
that's
again,
definitely,
practice it.
yeah. No, practicing it is a big thing. I mean, I would recommend printing out role plays, especially if you're like a role play competitor. I am personally printing them out. And then when you have them, focusing on specific things, like maybe it is, that sort of extra factor. I think that's kind of like a big thing to focus on for ICDC. And I will say also, s- maybe say something in role play that's, about something current. Like maybe it's a current trend that's going on, or maybe it's just sort of like a current situation going on in the world. Having that in your role play definitely sets you apart and makes your role play more applicable to the real world. I think I have like one or two more questions, if you
Sure.
don't mind.
Yeah.
Perfect. You talked a little bit about prepping as like an individual, but how do you think as a chapter as a whole you can prepare for competition, guide members in their studying or just as a chapter supporting these members?
So I call them like mock districts, mock state, mock ICDC. I think those are essential. You do need to be practicing. So you need to be practicing with business professionals because don't get me wrong, practice with your advisor, with other students, with family members, but you want to get in front of a business professional if possible.
Hmm.
So I do try to set those up weekly between the state conference and the ICDC conference. That's the goal. But even on your own, you could do that too. The other thing is, I would say again, it depends, I guess, if you have the class or not.
Yeah.
Like if I have the person in class right now, that is what they're doing every day. But if I don't have the person in class right now, then it's a little harder to work with them. But you guys, I'm sure your advisor, if you don't have them in class, if you said, "Hey, I want to come in and practice a role play with you," they would be
Yeah.
like, "Yes, let's do
Yeah.
that."
For
So
sure.
don't be afraid to ask for that, right? Because people want to help you. And even if you know a business owner or your family knows a business owner, or ask if they would be willing to listen to your presentation. Like financial consulting, one of my students is a qualifier in that. So he's meeting with two different financial advisors. What would this actually look like? And how would you actually do this as the financial advisor? So
If there are any chapter leaders listening, or even just anyone in the chapter advisors, take note of that, especially like the mock competition is could be something super helpful. Of course, doing it with your advisors is great, but having, a day or just like maybe mandating everybody do at least one role play or something is definitely super helpful. And this is more of a personal question for you, Miss Bost, but what is it like having Bree in your chapter and
I
provide
love
any
having Bree in
insight?
my chapter. She's awesome. Yeah. So first of all, whenever we're gonna have a class party, okay, we have
Yeah,
the best food, right? Because she bakes it for us. So I love that.
sure.
That's awesome. And she's just always super helpful. Like, Miss Boss, what is it that we need to get done? And even simple things like writing an article for the newspaper about how we did at the district conference, at the state conference. So
Hmm.
I really appreciate her willingness to find a way, even if I don't go to her and say, "Hey, I need you to do this." She comes to me and says, "Hey, what needs to get done?"
Yeah,
You see the difference? That's actually super helpful. And don't get me wrong, like as a teacher, I'm always given things that need to get done. But when a student can come to me and say, "Hey, what needs to get done?" Or even better yet, "Hey, I think that we should do this for the chapter." Like she was like, "Hey, do you want me to write a letter or a press release for the newspaper?" I was like, "That'd be awesome." So sometimes just bringing those ideas to your advisor, and she does a great job. And I don't have her in class right now, and I'm so sad.
Thank you so much, Ms. Boss, for, taking the time to come on our podcast. Do you have any other closing thoughts or reminders for our members?
I would say go with a growth mindset. I mean, we already talked about the competition side for sure. And I think we're pretty clear on that, but the rest of it, like take it in.
Yeah,
This is this is seriously could be a life-changing moment for you. Just taking this all in, and you never know when you're going to see that DECA member again in life. So do the networking. Just dive right into it and take advantage of all the opportunities.
for sure. All right. Thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. And I hope to see you at ICDC.
Yeah, sounds great.
We talked a little bit about the packing list, but just making sure that you definitely bring your blazer, coordinate outfits if you are in a team or whatever it is, and you have your toiletries. Also, when you get there, trading pins, like I said, is a big thing. So that's something I also like to put on my blazer. So I have like a couple, unique pins, I guess you could say, and I put them on my blazer. And that's just kind of a way for me to kind of personalize my blazer. And it's just kind of a fun thing. Make sure you also don't forget things like backup socks, chargers, your confidence, breath mints, and really kind of some of those small things that probably would forget. All right, finally, just a little bit more competition prep advice or whatever you want to say is that, make sure you are using DECA Plus that has a lot of study resources. If you've been using it for a district or state level, just maybe brush back up on some of those terms, on, some of those questions, anything like that. Do mock role plays if you are in a role play event, and also check out DECA Direct for, more articles. Check out also some of our previous episodes on the podcast, like episode 3, which does have, we talk a little bit more about DECA Plus. And if you want to learn how to use that resource, check out episode 3. And then also episode 9, when we did talk about preparing for districts, some of that advice, it can also be used for ICDC.
I just wanted to hop back in.
Yeah.
On DECA Plus, if you talked about current events in your area, they have an entire section in DECA Plus on that. So the work is already done for you. You just got to go into DECA Plus and read those articles. I think there's 8 or 10 for every single event. So you were right on with that too.
Yeah, DECA Plus has a lot of stuff, so definitely check it out. Also, event briefing videos all will be posted at deca.org/ICDC and in the key information section. So definitely check that out for your events. And also make sure you know kind of your scoring rubric as well. Your 21st century skills, you're hitting on role plays and things like that. So just to kind of recap, go over all the stuff we talked about, from the success at ICDC to, now preparing for ICDC. This podcast episode had it all covered. Thank you everyone who did come on the podcast to hopefully you learned something new and are able to use that information, in your preparation. And, share your ICDC journey on Instagram and tag us. I mean, at SCDC, we saw a lot of posts and, some people tagged us in them, and we were, really grateful to see all of the interactions that we saw on Instagram. And we'll see you in Orlando. Happy preparing and best of luck to everyone in their competition. We'll be back in a few weeks to hand this off to our 2025-2026 State Executive Council. Thank you, everyone.